Alright, this post was published Tuesday, November 25th, 2014, and I titled it The O Gate. And I said, much has been unveiled to me since my last few posts, and at an increasing rate to where I feel the need to make a note of many of the corroborating bits of information and present it to those who have seen the unfolding of this publication and my findings regarding the egg of Ma-Ion. This information can be of use to anyone so long as you're able to discern, extract, and extrapolate your own ideas from the material set forth. That is in this post as well as others. In this post, I will focus on a recent situation regarding a cascade of coincidental events, which all connect to various materials I've been researching in widely different strands of wisdom which come together to the same point. Really, it actually starts with me searching for stuff on eBay, which is how I found out about Kenneth Grant through his book Aleister Crowley and the Hidden God, somewhat shortly after I began reading about Crowley, way back in 2009 and 10. I found a shirt of this band I admired called Doth, ironically, and it happened to have the same symbol of an eye within not one triangle, but four. This was odd because later that night, completely by chance, I came across that very symbol again. I was reading a book by Jim Keith, Saucers of the Illuminati. I don't know why I said it backwards, but I said, and it mentioned an older writer on such subjects named George Hunt Williamson. I was reading what I could about him and came across his book, Other Tongues, Other Flesh, which I also found in an original 1953 first edition for a good price, and it contains the very same symbol on page 72. The book goes on to talk about many things, but there is an emphasis on the symbolism of the tongue in its spiritual meaning, as well as that of language itself. Chapter 1 is called The Solet's Mal, and explains how this phrase means the mother or solar tongue. Solex means solar, and mal is said by Hunt to mean tongue. Mal is generally known to mean evil or bad, as in Lafleur's du mal, malice or malevolent. Incidentally, my own initials are MAL, the reverse of lamb, meaning he who goeth, see the vision and the voice. Note, I have no connection with any members of the band Doth, and to my knowledge they are no longer producing albums. I've just been a fan for years, and if they aren't your taste, that is fine. I'm merely just noting that I found it odd this symbol came up in a book after years of seeing this album to learn about its meaning the very day I bought a shirt which had this same symbol on it. The tongue is a magical organ of manifestation of which the materialistic Western mind fails to understand or adequately control. The symbolism of the tongue has been described excessively in my previous material, and Grant has explained its Maotian significance extensively in his books. One of the main things to point out is that there are said to be 17 muscles in the tongue. See the book The Sense of Taste by Harry Levi Hollingworth and Albert Theodor Poffenberger. This is Kabbalistically significant since 17 is the number of the Hebrew letter Pe, P with a gematria value of 80 or 800, and the meaning of Pe is that relating to the tongue or mouth. It should be known that 17 was seen of special enough relevance by Grant for him to have put an appendix on its occurrence in special esoteric dates in his last Typhonian trilogy in 2002, The Ninth Arch. The tongue is a form of phallus or lingam in the oral yoni. And since 17 is associated with the mysteries of Osiris and Orion, and note that there are 17 stars in the constellation of Orion that are visible to the naked eye, the tongue itself can be fathomed as the lost phallus of Osiris, whose meaning was lost to the unconscious. Lost to the conscious and the unconscious. The tarot card to which the letter Pe is attributed is the Tower, which of course calls to mind the legend of the Tower of Babel and the confusion of tongues. The odd coincidences don't end here. My girlfriend at the time and I both have been seeing both the number 17 and 107 come up all over the place, and oddly enough, there is even a guy on Facebook who has created a group called 107 Anomaly, because he too sees combinations of the number 1, 0, and 7 all over as well. I have consulted him regarding my own Kabbalistic findings of this number, but he seems to have little to no knowledge of the complexities of gematria or this massive work I have written regarding this ominous number. There has to be something to it, though, which someone has to know about. I've even captured screenshots of it in various movies and TV shows I've seen, from the movie Conspiracy Theory with Mel Gibson and Julia Roberts to the children's cartoon Yu-Gi-Oh! And other animes. See below.
I'm gonna go the same way twice, you know. Yeah, Tom, I just live in there. I have to get up. Okay. Here, you should have this.
What is it?
Oh, this is my union plan. Figured the way you drove, you know, you should be in the union. I'd be proud to have you drive me around in a cab.
The Rebirth of Buddha, Gundam, Yu-Gi-Oh! Note, the main significance with this one is that the 107 is fully clad in purple, pink, fuchsia colors, which I have also explained extensively in this blog as relating to Thoth and the magic force known under various names. See Over the Rainbow. And again, 107 is Valis, the vast active living intelligence system, which communicated to Philip K. Dick via a pink light. And pink is related to, obviously, Mauve, the Mauve Zone. I may sound like some conspiracy theorist, but clearly there is something strange about this number. As a matter of fact, 107 is also the number of marmas, as I've recently mentioned, or energy points in the body, according to Ayurveda. And so this number is particularly associated with the auric energy field of the spirit body itself, as symbolized by the egg. This number shows the egg warded by the number 17, the tongue, showing that the tongue and aura, ruach, or spirit, are closely related. It is, of course, by way of the tongue in which we communicate in words. And even when we are not actually speaking, we can feel the impressions the tongue would make if it were spoken, because the tongue is the actual muscle behind our human linguistic expression. Well, now that I know that also you've got vocal cord muscles, and NASA has been working on reading those so that astronauts don't actually have to talk. They can just verbalize it kind of with their throat, because obviously sound is blocked when you're traveling in a rocket.
At NASA Ames Research in Moffett Field, California, researchers have upped the ante on how people might one day communicate with each other and with machines. These robotic rovers are being controlled with a communications method that seems more like telepathy than telephony. NASA calls it subvocal speech. By use of special sensors that interpret muscle signals in the larynx and tongue, these technicians are able to maneuver the rovers by silently voicing certain commands.
What's going on here is sometimes confused with people with reading your thoughts. We're not really reading your thoughts.
A computer programmed to recognize the signals as individual words can then send those words via a wireless network to a machine like a robot or to a handheld device.
I'm excited about the possibility that we may enable a whole new way for humans to communicate with their world.
With technology that reads signals sent directly from the brain, how long will it be before we create telephones that can be embedded directly into our heads? Would you want a cell phone implanted inside your tooth?
No matter how small they get, is there's still a particular comfort level in being able to hold a device as opposed to having one implanted inside you. So I think people will always want to have the sensation of being in control by holding something.
At NASA Ames Research.
This is only so if we are communicating only via the region known as the Vishuddha or throat vocal chakra. We are able to communicate also at higher and lower centers via the higher mind as well as the heart, and of course the sexual and mundane channels of expression as well, corresponding to the far lower chakras. The idea is to open each of them and learn their language. In reading more about the concept of mu or mu, since I decided to call the obsidian egg, which I happened to obtain 107 years into the Eon of Horus while not even knowing the significance of the egg or that number when I obtained it, I came across the books of James Churchward, who wrote about the ancient continent known as Lemuria or Mu. Interestingly enough, or whether or not his material is even all that accurate in and of itself, something highly unique stood out to me. He claimed that the language of the Lemurians was something called Naga Maya, and sure enough, I calculated it using Hebrew-English gematria, and Naga Maya is 55 plus 52, which is 107. Not only that, but in reading further into that Other Tongues, Other Flesh book, I also found that he calls the new age the new Mu, as it is a resurrection of the old. Lo and behold, new Mu equals 107 as well. Clearly something which is far deeper than our language can express is being conveyed here. The language is symbolic, and in some extreme cases it boils down to being purely numerical, where its meaning is as precise as a mathematical formula. Mu, also being the 13th Greek letter, calls to mind the Greek philosopher Euclid in his 13 books on mathematics. In the new Mu, mathematics will be seen as co-equal to language, and the art of Nagamaya, or serpent magic, will bridge the gap between the two polarizations of the analytical left brain and creative right brain, language and mathematics, and feeling and meaning, as expressed in what has been called art. To these two generalized categories can also be placed the seeming opposites of science and religion or mysticism, or spirituality or whatever. But the two are simply the basic outer or outward and manifest ordeals in the world of matter juxtaposed with the inner or inward ordeals of mind of the individual. The two are inevitable and inescapably interchangeable. It was Aleister Crowley whose publication, The Equinox, stated on every copy the dictum, "The method of science, the aim of religion." It is quite a shame that so many deny the very arts and sciences of those masters before them, even though the path has been outlined in numerous detailed accounts. So far I have shown with science that these hermetic or mystic practices, known variously as astrology, Kabbalah, gematria, tarot, symbolism, synchronicity, etc., are in fact apt languages themselves, each connected or overlapping and interpenetrating, even though of distinct origins, arising at completely separate periods of time by various peoples. The only way to analyze anything effectively is by surveying all possible categories and perspectives of the available data. From the little bit of organizing I have done of my own database, I have found legitimate scientific evidence of value in the gematria and other Kabbalistic principles for use in such things as engineering and a host of other applications. Being a complete skeptic about everything to where it blinds you from reality itself is a result of being fearful and clouding yourself with denial. Many people see the name Aleister Crowley and scoff because all they know about him or his work they read secondhand or couldn't get past some particular part of his character they dislike, and never took the time to look beyond him and look at the work he provided and the wide range of subjects he pointed to. Using as an example one of his more widely known works, Liber 777, and other Kabbalistic writings, which in the common printed edition by Weiser contains his Sefer Sephiroth, or Liber 500, which is a short sort of gematria database list of Hebrew word values. For the number 777, he has listed Olam HaKlafath, the world of shells. These shells are the dead forms which are not, in the sense they are non-physical, but nonetheless there as if like a magnetic field, or, again, the countercharge, the shell, the spaces between, the fractions, the interstitial spaces between, the interstices. The shells are thus equated with the cells in which bits of data occupy a matrix, or in which kalas give rise to the Leela of Maya. These are the shells of Atman, and Atman is literally the self. And it should be seen Atman equals 101, which is the number of self. 777 is also the light world, which is the mind and Ruach itself as the lights of the zonai or planets, alchemical metals or chakras. Max Heindel, in his book The Rosicrucian Cosmoconception or Mystic Christianity, says, "Occult science teaches that there are 777 incarnations, but that does not mean that the Earth undergoes 777 metamorphoses. It means that evolving life makes 7 revolutions around the 7 globes of the 7 world periods. I began talking about gematria in my second post, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and mentioned that 777 was the number of revelation. But at the time I had not known it was also the number of the dictionary, showing how Liber 777 acts as a sort of gematria dictionary. Either Crowley hadn't taken it serious enough to include it, or didn't have space in the book, or perhaps didn't want to go into too explicit of detail, but there is little in his writing dealing with the gematria of Hebrew values applied to English words and phrases. However, I have found it accurate enough that I could even show 777 or 777 to be symbolic of the gematria code proof of the teachings of Kabbalah, just with this very number. People could say that any word or phrase could be made to equal this number, but using specifically Hebrew-English gematria, this is not possible since the values are fixed. With the exception of the few final values of Kaf, Mem, Nun, Pe, and Zadi, as well as the interchangeable C, K, Q, Samek, Shin, Teth, or Tau variations, and those still limit things almost even more. But these minor details are important, for they actually serve as ways to protect its full wisdom from those who are unable to read and understand the formula itself and its schematic. Also, for automatic systems, they won't be able to detect the nuances as well as a cognizant person. It has come through great struggle that these words and formulae can be presented here in such a condensed form, and this is still maintaining a safe distance from much of the material yet to be released in Liber 999. The direction I want to take this now ties in with the material I've been steeping myself in, namely that of Tibetan Buddhism and Hinduism, along with the archaeology of Mu. This is where the various strands come together to a single point. My friend, who I've mentioned before as Soror 722, told me a while ago to look into this thing called cymatics, which is apparently the study of sound and its effects and patterns in various materials, such as sand or water when applied at different frequencies. After many months of not even calculating the word itself, I finally found that cymatics is 777, when using Cheth for C and Tau 400 for T and Shin 300 for S. After playing with various calculations, I found 777 to also be the number of the very relevant visible sound holograph and vibration hologram. Also, after reading much about all these various Buddhist and Hindu words, something about Sanskrit and the Eastern languages in general, more so in fact than Hebrew or English, and how it is focused on mantras, sound, and feeling, I found that Sanskrit transliterated more accurately is Samskrita, which added to the lesser valued cymatics with the Teth and Samek also gives 777. Furthermore, 777 is the code of the sound, itself being both the equilibrium and vibration of the sonic scale. Sound and vibration is related to light and shadow, and space and time, and the shells or cells of light have their counterpart in the waves of sound. Waves radiate in circular spiral patterns, and it is notable that 777 is also the O of Circe. Circe being the goddess of the great circle of witchcraft and sorcery. Sorcery means to ensorcel or encircle. And the name Circe is also related to the words church and circus, which are closer concepts than one might think. 777 is not just related to the circle in the shell or cell, it is the whole circle, being the fullness of the Ruach before twisting beyond the walls of space-time in the triple infinite lemniscate of 888, the fullness of infinity. This circle, or O, is the circle of which we base our clocks and time off of, as it is the path which our earth and sun take, giving us night and day. The O is the gate which we see through, called Ayin in Hebrew and Anya in Sanskrit. The emphasis of sight throughout this blog has always been not so much in the exoteric sense as in the esoteric, and so the sight here being referred to deals with the consciousness which is ethereal, or of or relating to the regions beyond the earth, lacking material substance. And together, of course, ethereal consciousness is 777. It is the brain and mind, showing that mind is separate from the physical brain, but they come together to make this same particular mathematical number, 777. And I wouldn't say it's separate, but it's distinct from. And they're kind of interrelated, interlocking or whatever, but which exposes the true magic of the Homo sapien science, as it is the Lucifer consciousness of liberation, and relating to the gates thereof, the Gatewalker Code and the digital reality key. Perhaps of prime significance to the Masonic brothers and sisters out there, tying in what I began in Mayat and Masonry, 777 is the key of Freemasonry, which parallels the key of evolution. I have similar sentiments about Freemasonry as I do with Crowley. While they both have a bit of controversy surrounding them, not only does that lend them more fascination, but they yield too much knowledge and benefit to turn away from in fear or mistrust and preconceptions. The Masons have used gematria in their geometry since time immemorial, and their secrets have long been left in plain sight for those with the keys of the wisdom. The unification of letters, numbers, and astro-alchemical elemental symbols in the Kabbalah. In the true spirit of brotherhood, the Masons lay all differences at the door of the temple and come together in their oneness as carriers of the one spirit, known as the Grand Architect of the universe. 777 is the Mason ashlar, the cubic stone which is shown in pictograph form as the Antakarana cube, which is the bridge of spirit and matter. Thus, it's also the formula of a Master Mason, who, if one is truly a Mason, knows their place in the secret Masonic Church, wherein each disciple is a builder of the earthly paradise to which many have long forgotten their duty to maintain. Thus, 777 brings the spiritual gnosis of the ethereal consciousness down to the earth plane, and as the key of evolution, it is also the Malkuth evolution, and Malkuth is not to be treated as a landfill or a farm, but a garden to be tended to appropriately. Furthermore, I found that 777 is the secret of the cube sphere, mentioned by Walter Russell in The Secret of Light. The cube and sphere veil the dual male-female principles like fire and water, whose symbol comes together as the hexagram or 33, which in Masonic symbolism is usually on the phoenix, whose light shines beyond life and death, in the vast expanse. In the vast expanse, beyond the cube-sphere matrix of the false reality of Maya, which can also be thought of as the astral sea, the dream, the inner mystical realm of mind and imagination, which sometimes seems more real than that which is right in front of your eyes. The cube sphere implies the alchemical formula of the squaring of the circle, which is veiled in the square and compass symbol itself, for the compass outlines the circle, and the square tool measures the square and veils the ordeal of merging the spiritual universe with the material universe, which is further veiled in 777 as the two worlds, inside and outside. The two come together as one in the Lodge Architect. This is the same identity as the architect of the psyche, using Alcheth or 8 for C in this case, for the genius behind the architecture of the kingdom is both within and without. This is the missing genius, the powerful genius, who holds the power of manifestation via the word and gives the message to recover the gematria, since it contains the formulae of man's true spiritual heritage. 777 literally points the way of man as it is man plus the way. Gematrix.org doesn't calculate final values, so you have to work it out yourself. In this formula, we can see that man carries the value of 741, which is attributed by the Rosicrucians to the archetypal spirit of creation through light and sound, known as Lucifer. See page 145 of the Secret Teachings of All Ages by Manly Palmer Hall in regard to this. To explicate this further, it should be known that 741 is also the value of Amen, or Amun, the Egyptian name of the supreme hidden god, the sun behind or beyond the sun, coming as a verification that this number deals with the angelic principle of Lucifer is the fact that it is also the value of the rebel angel. And of course, Lucifer was known for being cast out for his rebellion. See also the Lucifer rebellion in the Urantia book. The value of the way, or the via, is here in its lower form of 36, 19 plus 17. 36 is commonly known to be 6 times 6, and if the numbers 1 through 36 are summed up, the number 666, which is attributed to the devil and Lucifer, is obtained. The symbolism darkens when it is realized that the spiritual state of man is in a fallen or suppressed state, as we are still in the Kali Yuga, where the minds of man are clouded and distracted, sometimes fully entranced by the externalizations of the outside world. In this sense, we find a sort of necessary evil, for through perseverance during hardship, we find great pearls of truth and worth. As the way of man, 777 is an amplification of the number 77, which appeared to me recently in a dream, very large on the price sticker of an unknown red book. When I woke up, I wondered what 77 may mean and quickly looked it up in my Gematria database. It is both God and beast, as well as the Via Media, or middle way, between the two extremes, which was also the preferred path of the Buddha. Above, I mentioned having been steeping myself in Buddhism, particularly Tibetan, as of late, and I wrote about it in the final chapter of my book, Liber 999, that I found it highly significant that not only have I just turned age 22 this past August, but 22 happens to be the number of Buddha, which actually means fully awakened, or awakened one. 22 has been discussed here as being the Hebrew letters, tarot trumps, etc., but most importantly, it is to be understood as the full circle of manifestation and ultimately the O gate, the supreme gate of the 231 gates traversed by the Fool in his path of becoming one with the universe, the Fool being crucified on the cross. Later, I found that 77 was Buddha 22 plus field 55, which is actually a concept in Buddhism relating to the pure land or realm or abode of the Buddha. Literally the Buddha matrix or Buddha embryo. See also the Buddha nature or Buddha principle. Kabbalistically, 77 is the Ayin 70, full with the 7 spirits of the Ruach. It is also the number of the Anahata or heart chakra, which is the hexagram and soul symbol, implying the unification of the 7 points or chakras of the body. Hence, 77 is also DISC as well as OBE, the acronym of out-of-body experience, which is done with the Buddha field of the unified disk by entering the space-time capsule of the egg or zero body, the true eternal Buddha body. This is the way of the Buddha Amitabha Maitreya, which I am setting forth in this work. 77 with the egg, 707, which is related to 777, as well simply by the fact that the 0 is closely related to the O, or AN or I, which has the value of 70. 707 is the number of the crack with Kaf final in the egg, and the Anya chakra itself, which cracks open when the fire serpent reaches that level, which is also known as the level of Guru, also 777, where the 2 hemispheres of the brain, as well as the inner and outer worlds, come together as one, which is exemplified numerically in 707 as the double AN 70 facing toward one another. This is the I looking in on itself, the resolution of the self into not self, understood as pure being, and when reified as a state of being, is called anatma in Sanskrit or anatta in Pali. This state is shown at the top of this page as what is known as the Tai Chi Quan symbol, which is related to the Taijitu or yin-yang, but shows the empty center of the great void, which connects with Thoth and the tree of life. It is known in Sanskrit as Sunya or Sunyata. I have found that the Sunya, or the void, is also 777, and so it can be seen how the An of the O opens onto the void and contains the kalas of the goddess 15, O. Also, the number 0 in Liber 777 is related to the dragon, which the eye of the dragon is related to the void. The 5 triangles in the yantra of Kali give the 15 nityas, or eternities, corresponding to the 15 days of the waning moon. Incidentally, there are 36 outer corners, and 36 was mentioned about as 6 times 6, and the way which is the unification of all ways, or all 36 decans of the zodiac, or all 360 degrees of the Great Circle. This shows that 777 is the Kali Yantra key, or the Kali Yantra gateway, which opens the waking consciousness up to the astral or death consciousness of the dreaming and deep sleep states, symbolized by the 3 rings. This is the inward opening current, whereas the Antakarana is a glyph of the outward flow of the manifestation of light. The downward triangle is symbolic of water, and the 5 triangles of water are related to the 5 M's or makaras used in Tantric puja or sadhana. See Panchamakara. As a matter of fact, the goddess 15, which Kenneth Grant mentions so much, especially in Aleister Crowley and the Hidden God, equals 707. Thus, along with Ayin, 70 gives 777. So the goddess 15 with the O, her symbol. Thus, 777 can clearly be seen as a supreme formula of manifestation and consciousness in their various systems of advancement. 777 is also the 231 Kaula gates, and the Kaula circle is commonly known among Eastern adepts, while the 231 are of Western or Kabbalistic origin. They come together because they are one and the same, for they both open the gates of consciousness and its source. Each of the 231 cells or shells is a gateway, and the consciousness continuum for 777 enumerates the 231 paths, 231 plus 546, as well as the sum of Hebrew letters forming the path of the flaming sword traced down the tree of life. 231 is the number of the Greek skaya, meaning shade or shadow, and the shadows are the shells mentioned above. And 777 is the fullness of the inner light and shadow, the shadow of the inner light being the material world of manifestation, i.e. Maya or magic. This is the frontispiece of the Chinese Diamond Sutra, the oldest known dated printed book in the world. Note the diamonds or rhombuses on the ground. See also the Diamond of Perfection. Tying back in with these coincidences, I found that 777 is also the dream of the Buddha, which reminds me of the dream I had featuring the number 77, which was odd since numbers rarely ever appear in my dreams. Not only that, but it is also the gematria of Buddha, or the Buddha of gematria, the gematria of the awakened one. If it hasn't been shown clear enough how highly concentrated the gnosis is in this number, 777, 777 is also the Vajrayana site, Vajrayana being the diamond vehicle, which is of the purest tenuosity as it pierces through all veils of illusion. See the Diamond Sutra. This is the dragon site, which the root of dragon is Durkesthai, meaning to see clearly, mentioned in Dragon Blood, which is opened via the Drakancha or diamond eye of the dragon. Note again that Drakancha is 739, which is the sum of the spheres on the tree which form the Drakancha, Netzach being 148, Hod being 15, Yesod being 80, and Malkuth being 496. 739 is one more than the dragon, 738, and thus the point in the letter O, or the magic circle. 739 is 10 more than 729, which is 9 cubed. It's also the 19 plus 720 mirror, the mirror being related to both everything, the mirror being again related to the dragon and Vajra and all this. 739 is 10 more than 729, which is 9 cubed, 9 times 9 times 9, which veils the opening of the eye of the dragon serpent at the center of the Drakancha. This is why I wrote about the significance of the mirror in The Mirror Working, because it too is a tool for opening the inner sight of the diamond dragon, or the diamond eye of the dragon. I have thus expounded the noble truth of the dragon wisdom, both 777, which has for long eons been lost to man, if not forever unknown to the common man. Looking at the Buddha in the image above, it should be seen as significant that the halo circle is also 777. 294, mentioned in the last post, is the magical gematria code of Satan. The idea of Satan has already been explored extensively, but for the sake of comprehension, it can be thought of as the state of materialization or materialism. 666 was given in the book of Revelation and 1 Kings chapter 10 verse 14, the 66th book of the Bible, as being the number of both a man and the beast. Obviously, to Megatherion, the great beast in Greek, was identified by Crowley to equal 666, along with the Hebrew therion, or beast. The number 111 was attributed to his magical son, Frater Achad, or Charles Stansfeld Jones, who was the 111 mentioned in Liber AL. And Crowley's Liber LF, or 111, was specifically written for and dedicated to Achad. Together, they formulate the much exhausted 777 analyzed above. It is in this sense that I consider my work a continuation of what has been termed the externalization of the hierarchy, for the hierarchy is 444, the number of the lapsit exilis, or stone of exile, i.e. externalization, and Kenneth Grant has noted throughout his books that 333 is a number of the star stone Exaxar, as well as Silba, which he says is the self, the source of the wisdom of the stellar tradition. The lapsit exilis Exaxar is thus 777, being the cubic stone which itself crosses as well as bridges the abyss from the Ruach 7 to the supernal triad 3. This star stone is the egg of Vajrayana, the diamond vehicle or the chariot vehicle, which is also typified as a cosmic egg. The chariot tarot card is related to the Merkaba chariot, and 777 also shows the way of Merkaba. The great vehicle, or Mahayana, to which the great school of Mahayana Buddhism lends its name, is veiled under the symbol of the perfect circle. I have noted in Break the Cycle how circle is 251, which is the same number as Kurla and Vril. It is significant then that there is a crossover in how Mahayana, which is 109, which is the same number as the Hebrew word for circle, Ogol. How significant then is it that we find 251 plus 109 to equal 360, the actual mathematical value of the full or great circle? 777 is the 360 container, or the 360 spectrum, being the energetic Buddha field, or the Buddha microcosm. These are the Doth bubbles of individuated consciousness. Note that the word bubbles is 107, the number of the gold egg, Bitsa, who bubbles the dream froth of existence from his blind eye at the primordial center of spacetime. 107 being the combination of Azathoth, Pazuzu, Iblis, and even recently I found the value of the Sanskrit transliteration of Satan as Pazaka, is also 107, as well as Valis itself, tends to show that this number veils the entity ID, or identity, 107, of the demiurge itself, beneath its various masks, which is why thought is 107 as well, which is where the demiurge begins to clothe itself. This blog is first and foremost an account of my findings regarding the star stone of Ma-Ion, which manifested itself to me on April 2, 2011. It was not until relatively recently, this long after my findings of this egg and this date, which relates to Frater Achad and his findings regarding the Eon of Maat, that it actually appears in the work of H.P. Lovecraft in The Call of Cthulhu, which is mentioned so much by Kenneth Grant. Apparently, April 2nd is the date of a great storm in that story, as well as the date in which the fabled Rillia sank into the ocean, corresponding with the lost continent of Mu, located near the Nemo Point, the farthest point from any landmass in the Pacific Ocean. This story was written in 1926 and published in 1928. The sinking of Rillia relates to the subconscious mind, as well as the dream, and it should be noted that Rillia equals 250, the number of dream. Lovecraft claims Rillia is located at 47 degrees and 9 miles south, 126 degrees and 43 miles west, in the southern Pacific Ocean, while Auguste Derleth, a contemporary correspondent of Lovecraft and co-creator of the mythos, placed Rillia at 49.51 and 128.34. Both locations are close to the Pacific pole of inaccessibility, the Nemo point, 4852.6 and 123.23.6, a point in the ocean farthest from any land mass. Quoting from the Call of Cthulhu at one of the main parts which mentions the date of April 2nd, it says, "And what of this storm of April 2nd, the date on which all dreams of the dank city ceased, and Wilcox emerged unharmed from the bondage of strange fever? What of all this, and of those hints of old Castro about the sunken, star-born old ones and their coming reign, their faithful cult and their mastery of dreams? Was I tottering on the brink of cosmic horror beyond man's power to bear? If so, they must be horrors of the mind alone, for in some way the 2nd of April had put a stop to whatever monstrous menace had begun its siege of mankind's soul." The date is now seen in its cosmic importance, being not only the date of the sinking of Rillia, but also the birth date of Freder Achad, as well as Charlemagne in 742 apparently, and the day on which he discovered the key of Ma-Ion in 1948. Freder Achad, of course, not Charlemagne. Charlemagne hardly really connects. I just found his birth date coincidental. Numerologically, this date is also significant in that it is the 93rd day of the year on leap years, 93 being the current of Thelema, which the current of Ma-Ion is a continuation of under the aegis of Maat. However, the two are one as Horus Maat or Hrumachis. Thus, the currents of 93 and 107 come together as 200, which is the Thelema Maat key. Thelema is the will, and Maat is the keeper of the truth. Therefore, 200 is related to the true will, which is veiled under the number 200, that of Resh and the Sun card. The true will is condensed in the Kundalini, also 200, which is related to the magnetic field, with 200 also being the magnetic balance. Maat is the balancer, while Horus is the dual contending forces of the active Rahur Kuit and passive Hur-Par Krat, or Horus and Set. The dual form of Maat is in Isis and Nephthys, and the corresponding polarities come together to form the inner and outer diamond or crystalline grids of the micro and macrocosmic matrix. Basically, that's just to say the double polarities of the yin and the yang, which again creates this sort of like elemental electric fusion. The diamond grid is the basic form of the dragon lines or ley lines, which hold the fabric of the matrix or Maya together, and it is interesting to note that the trowel of the masons which cements the bricks of the temple together is also diamond-shaped. More simply, however, is the allocation of the 4 letters of the tetragrammaton to the 4 points of the diamond. This diamond is a square when on its side, and can be a pyramid if considered from an aerial perspective, or 3D perspective. The symbol thus veils the secret word of God in the stone ashlar of the Masons, as well as the full temple pyramid, which is capped or crowned with the 5th element of spirit, interpenetrating the elements like the cement holding the bricks together. However, if it is looked at in another way, in the top point where the yod is considered the apex, a triangular prism stands out. The 5th element still applies as being the etheric point within and beyond the Platonic form. The diagram has simply been transmogrified into a 3-dimensional shape instead of a flat 2D square or diamond. I was not aware at the time of my writing it, but the formula in Dragon Blood dealing with the 5 elements of Yod, Aleph, Mem, Shin, and Teth, formulated as I am Set, enumerated to 751, which is Yod He Vav He, or 26, less than 777. 26 is also the number of Chuzeh, or Chavaz, the Hebrew word for sight or vision, and 26 is the path of Ayin on the tree. 777 is thus the eye plus eyesight, which, like the brain and mind, also expresses the organ and its function. 777 is the eternal fall into the bottomless pit of the abyss, for 777 is also the opened Doth abyss. It is also the dreamer of Doth as 474 in the lucid dream of 303, or the lucid dream time, wherein the dreamer has control over his creative magic power. This is the healing secret of the shaman power, which I am attempting to try to convey in as clear terms and examples as possible. The energy known variously as chi, prana, virya, vril, juju, ku, magic, etc., is all one and the same spirit which veils itself in different vibrational or numerical patterns. This number shows the spirit channel, which, as I have said above, connects the above with the below and the within with the without. To the more spiritually, aware, or the more spiritual, it may be found significant that 777 is also the angel number of the spirit angels, or the angel spirits, the spirit angels. For those still skeptical that this gematria formula is accurate, I have this, a verification. No amount of evidence will suffice for some who choose to ignore this legitimate science, while they still consider themselves open-minded scientists. As can be seen from the many links provided, the exact same formula was used with only a couple examples in Jewish gematria. It's not like I went to hell and back to derive these formulas, which were actually quite easy to find, even for a 22-year-old. Again, once you have a database, the connections will start becoming more obvious. Still, to this date, to my knowledge, with my extensive surveying of the available literature on the subject, no one else has provided so much data regarding either the science of gematria or its application to the Thelemic and Typhonian traditions since Kenneth Grant. In fact, it is my experience that very few occultists consider gematria to be a valid practice, and I even tried discussing it with the leader of a nearby OTO encampment, and he couldn't seem to understand just how gematria could be of any value or application. This is a valid question, but it shows a markedly small understanding or knowledge of the applications of mathematical formulae of magical and mystical concepts, which Crowley himself used extensively, particularly in the numbers 23, 93, 418, 666, 777, etc. What value is there in 93 in and of itself? Nothing, except it is 93 parts over 100. It is only when it is understood in relation to various occurrences of that number among others. For example, the Earth is 93 million miles away from the Sun, approximately, and 93 is also shown in the Pali form of Om, the Ik Onkar, also symbolic of the solar source. The Om symbol is also similar to the Arabic form of Allah, which itself has 7 divisions corresponding to the 7 chakras. Using simple gematria, we can also see that Allah plus Omkara is 93 as well. 93 is the value of Jehovah, as well as the Islamic Allah plus the Hebrew Yod-He-Vav-He, showing that all these various identities of the same archetypal being are indeed one and the same. Thus, the application of numerology comes about from understanding the cosmic essence and quality of that number, so that one can rightfully organize their work according to precise mathematical calculations. Again, all of the formulas come together as one, Achad, 13. 13 is the 1 and 3, or manifest Holy Trinity. The 3 states of consciousness, waking, dreaming, and sleeping, all come from the same one source known as Turiya, which underlies these 3 like an ocean of pure consciousness. 13 is the number of M, Mem, or Mu, the waters of bliss, which give both life and death. It should be known here that 777 is the book of M. M, relating to my name, magic, mystery, Mayat, Metatron, Maitreya, Mu, mathematics, manifestation, etc. The letter M shows symbolically the vortex at the void, the vortex of the void at the center of the pillars of the abyss. The downward pointing cone coils down into the sunyata and dissolves into the state of anatma, represented by the absent O at the center of the Taiji Quan symbol of the Tao Te Ching. Is it surprising that the Tao Te Ching plus Taiji Quan is 777? This number is loaded with knowledge which can be extrapolated along with the many other key numbers which I have tried to unveil in this blog. I didn't understand how at first, but I found 777 to be the sex symbol, which shows the Om Yin-Yang union of opposites. I've written about as much as I can on this subject for the time being, but I can see much coming from this and other material that is still yet to be examined. Hopefully some things have been made a bit clearer for those wanting to understand more about the far-reaching aspects of Kabbalah, and other aspects of the occult and hermetic sciences. Any new findings of the number 107 or 777 in any movies or personal situations will be added below until something significant enough to be written about in a new post comes up. Finally, I want to post a link to a movie called The Laws of the Sun from this cult called Happy Science, which I actually found interesting for a number of reasons. For one of the hero characters happens to have a diamond symbol on his chest, and the movie was made long before I made any of the discoveries of that symbol. Which I didn't make the discoveries, I just compiled existing material, so obviously the diamond symbolism and its knowledge goes back to fucking a long time. I'm not a member of this group either. I merely just recently found this movie along with The Rebirth of Buddha and found them very interesting. Click picture for the link to the video. God, that post was long. I forgot about a lot of those formulas though.